Hello again. We're here for part two of my question and answer. As I said in the last one, I've broke it down into two or three parts because there were so many questions, and because I'm late delivering the Q&A, I didn't want to scratch any decent questions out, so I'm doing more. I did say in the last video, if you like it, I'll do more. But it's lockdown and I'm bored, so I'm gonna go ahead and record part two anyway, in the hopes that it's received well. So let's work through the questions, and hopefully you'll like them anyway. Okay. So, part two, question one. Chris Haywood has asked me. There's conditions on this question, Chris. You're naughty, really. Chris Haywood, who would you like to wrestle if you could, and why? Well, I could tell you, but you put two conditions on. You've put choose one from WWE and one from AEW. Well, it's a hard question, that, because I don't really watch modern wrestling. I watch a lot of wrestling, but I don't really watch the modern stuff. I sometimes keep an eye on it because we do the pay-per-views at Riley's, or because my daughter watches it. But especially since lockdown, with no crowd or minimal crowd, wrestling's not the same. It ain't. Wrestling's meant to be in front of a crowd, So I don't watch any of it at the moment. That's nothing knocking the talent or knocking how good they are. I don't watch it normally, and I know they're amazing, else they wouldn't have a job, So I'm not insulting them. So I'm going to answer your question best I can. If some of these have been fired or they're not about, I apologise. But when it comes to WWE, I think Dolph Ziggler's amazing. I think he can wrestle the socks off of anybody. So I'd pick him, or I might pick Johnny Gargano, because obviously you guys who follow us and see, you already know I've wrestled him in Rush Hall. I've already wrestled Johnny Gargano, but that was before he made it. He was already amazing. He'd already done all the big indie promotions. He was doing a tour of Europe, for instance. He was already famous. But I didn't know who he was, and I don't mean that nasty. My finger's not firmly on the pulse of what's going on in wrestling today, so I didn't quite know who he was. And it took us about 10 minutes to feel it out, and it actually ended up being one of the best matches I've ever had. I mean, that's testament to him. Gargano's fantastic, isn't he? You all know him now. He's rose to fame. But I'd like to go into that match now with his newfound fame, and everybody knows just how good it is, because it would be... I mean, Rush Hall was sold out anyway. It was sold out before we announced Gargano, so that was great. But imagine if you were to put, local wrestler PWL man against Johnny Gargano. If you were to put that now, it'd be, phenomenal, wouldn't it? So Ziggler or Gargano from WWE. With AEW, I've not seen it. I've seen clips. I've only seen mini clips. I watched Pac against the lad with his hands in his pockets, because I didn't know how a wrestler could wrestle with his hands in his pockets, and it impressed me. He rolled over him and he went under him and he done all that. I mean, I couldn't do it with the hands in the pockets, but it's not my kind of thing. But he was ridiculously talented. But I've only seen that one match and lots of clips. I've seen Jake the Snake do a promo, and that impressed me. And I've seen Arn Anderson do a few bits, and that made me happy, because I'm a huge Arn Anderson fan. I like Chris Jericho. He's decent, ain't he? He's one of the best of all time. But my answer's going to throw you a bit, because he's not currently wrestling, but he's on the roster, so I think it counts. I'd very much like to wrestle Tully Blanchard. Going back to when he was, one of the Horsemen or one of the Brainbusters, he was one of the best of, best going. And from what I can tell, I'm short. I'm not saying he's a midget like me, but he's about probably 5'10", something like that. He might stack up a bit better. And I know he was he went in harsh and he was a good hand. I might not be able to keep up, but I'd very much like to wrestle Tully Blanchard. Either now or in his prime. Probably now he'd be slower. No, I'm joking. Tully Blanchard from AEW. So yeah, I know I cheated a bit there, Chris, but I'm just doing it with my limited knowledge, really. Next question. John Stokes, where is the best place you have had the chance to wrestle? Oh God, I'm going to sound like a right prat now, because I'm going to pick the obvious one, and but it's the truth. I've been to America, I've been to Japan, I've been all over Europe, and they're all amazing. I've been up and down the UK, phenomenal. But for me, armies where, art is where the armies. I love wrestling at Darlaston. I love the shows we did be showing at the All Active, and I know I love the shows that we do at the Town Hall, whether it be a gritty underground show with just 120 people in, just all on top of each other, sweatbox the room. Not that we could do that now with the COVID, but that kind of atmosphere. Or whether it's one of the big massive shows with a balcony open in the big room with Billy Gunn or bloody Jim Duggan or whoever else we've took there. my love is where home is, and if it wasn't, I'd make a new home. You know, I love wrestling in the Black Country. I'm from the Black Country. The majority of the fans are from the Black Country or elsewise adopted Black Country folk, and that's where I love to be. That's not to say I don't love the other countries or the other towns or I love going to Nuneaton, I love going to Solihull, I love, I was in London just before the New Year wrestling with good mates and stuff like that. I love anywhere where there's a receptive crowd or a decent crowd, but for me it's the Black Country, and even more specifically than that, Walsall or Darlaston, because it's where my roots are. I know that's corny, but it's the truth, you know. Shane Wild, all right, mate. How you doing, mate? Good mate of mine, Shane. He's yeah, we have a few chats, and he's I've got me Star Trek coat over there that you give me, mate. He's a good man, Shane. He's asked me greatest ever in ring. This is how he's read it, so I'm going to read it as him. He's put, "What's your greatest ever in ring victory, me mon? Perfect Black Country lad, look, me mon." All right, Shane. Yeah. Quite recent one, really. It was for the Universal Champion, the Heat Up Universal Championship. Essentially a world title, my first world title ever. My moustache has gone a bit droopy, it's warm. The Heat Up Universal Championship, which is a Japanese office, So I was wrestling a Japanese man for a Japanese sanctioned world title in Portugal. And I'm obviously an Englishman, a proud Black Country man. So there was 3 different countries involved, and it was very much international. And what made it very sweet is not only were my lads there, like the trainees that travel with me, Cam and Cal and Nick and Leon and all the other, the lads was there. There was a big contingent of them, bless them, and that was just phenomenal to have them there with me. But what was very sweet is, or bittersweet really, it's a bit sad, but Elise, my wife, who's also a wrestler, she was going to wrestle on that show. She was going to come out with me and wrestle, her first international booking. It's a bit of a sad subject really, but she spoke about it openly on Facebook since, so I don't mind, or I hope she doesn't mind me talking about it. But she suffered a mini stroke a couple of months before the trip was able to go ahead. We didn't know how serious it would be. We didn't know how long the ramifications were. Well, in truth, we're still dealing with some of the ramifications of her health and different bits. She's 100%, she's A1, but we worry every time she gets an heavy headache or something like that, similar symptoms that led up to the first one. I can't out worry, it's just how it is. But she was supposed to wrestle there, and leading up to it, we didn't even know if she'd be allowed to fly. We didn't know if the doctors would clear her to fly. And then about a week before, they cleared her to fly, not to wrestle. She weren't anywhere near wrestling, but a lot of her faculties had come back, and she was okay and whatnot. And just to see her in the audience, for such a big moment in my career, that meant a lot to me. So yeah, it would be defeating Kanehira in Lisbon for the Heat Up Universal Championship. That's my biggest moment for me personally, but less about the belt and less about the accomplishment and less about the match, but more so that a group of my very wonderful trainees were there, and they all, bless them, they all rushed the ring and lifted me up, and that was just amazing. But it wasn't just that. It was the fact that Elise was there in the crowd after being so ill. And I was so worried about her, and we were all so worried about her. And have her there, and as soon as I got out the ring, I had the belt on my shoulder, dripping with sweat, and I went and give her a big hug. And that's on the DVD somewhere, or YouTube land, or something like that. But yeah, it was that, less for the achievement and less for the match, even though it was the biggest achievement probably of my career to date, and it was a very good match. I'm very proud of it. You'll know, because I share it on YouTube all the time. I've got another email here. They keep interrupting us, don't they? These emailers. It's okay, we can go on. It's all right. But yeah, more for Elise being there and the lads being there, more than a selfish moment for me, if that makes sense, Shane. Next question. This from Jamie Gardner, my mate in Darlaston. How you doing, mate? I hope you're okay. He's a Wolves man. Jamie is. He's a Wolves man. Question. What goes through your mind while wrestling against or alongside a WWE Hall of Famer? Good question, because obviously you've been to lots of the shows, Jamie, and you've seen lots of the American stars and the international stars over. Oh, the door's going. Hello? I'm recording here. Yeah, well, let me finish this and all. It's going to look awful on YouTube, ain't it? It don't matter. Don't matter. I like doing things in one take. It'll be all right. So WWE or Hall of Famer or legend, they don't have to be in the WWE to be a legend. What goes through my mind? There's a few moments, maybe just before the match starts, where you look over and go, bloody hell, that's Honky Tonk Man, that is, or that's Jim Duggan standing over there with his big stick and his flag. But in honesty, that only lasts for 2 seconds because you've got to concentrate, you've got a lot going on, you've got a crowd to please, you've got a game plan to stick to, whether you're in a tag team and you've organised this, that and the other together and you want to win the bout and you want to make it a good bout and you want to entertain people. You've got to breathe, you've got to tuck your chin, you've got to be safe, you've got to take care of yourself, you've got to take care of your opponent to that degree as well. You've got to keep to your game plan, you've got to remember the crowd's there, it's not in your mind. Maybe after the match, after the show, I'll get in, my head will hit the pillar, bump, and I'll go, bloody hell, tag with Tatanka tonight, or, just wrestle Dick Togo from Japan, or something like that. But me personally, I can't speak for every wrestler, but me personally, it hits me afterwards. I haven't got time or enough brain power, for lack of a better way, to process it at the time. It's just all on business, There has been a few times when there's entrances before the bell rings, and you've maybe done your entrance and you're there and you watch, the $1 Million Man walk out or something like that, and you're like, wow, I had a Hasbro of him when I was 12, but it's fleeting because you have so much to do. You're there to be a professional, you're there to do your job. So not much at the time, but it does weigh on you afterwards, Jamie, if that makes sense, Next question. Steve Walker, how you doing, mate? Great wrestler, great referee, lovely kid. Congratulations on becoming a father recently. Very, very pleased for you, mate. You're a wonderful bloke. What have you asked me? Favourite ever match and why? Oh, God. I wish I'd rehearsed these. I've had so many matches and so many great opponents, whether it goes back to my early days wrestling Carlos in Birmingham or wrestling Cade Callis in Warsaw or, wrestling the modern wrestling crop that we've got now, like Leon Jackson or Nick Powers, who I have a hell of a lot of battles with, or more of the high-profile matches that I've had, like if you go on Google, YouTube rather, I can't do the internet, I just say things, I hope I'm right. YouTube, you can watch me wrestle against Dick Togo, or earlier on in my wrestling career, maybe, a third in, I got to wrestle Tracy Smothers and I learned to load then, that was an honour. Or Dick Togo, Eugene from the WWE, them kind of people. There's so many to choose from. But I might take an easy cop out, probably because it's right on the top of my head. I don't know. I'd have to rehearse this to get it absolutely bang on. But I'm just talking right from my heart or right from me big gob. I don't know which one. But I'll probably go back to a previous question that Shane asked and say it's probably Can I Hear That because of how special it was, because of all the things around it. That's probably it, really. That's the answer off the top of my head, anyway, because it's fresh in my head, I hope you're all right, Steve. Another Steve now, Steve Butler, another good mate of mine, known him for a long time. Good trainee, very, very good mind for the business, Steve, as he asks all the right questions. He's a very conscientious young man. And he's put, what's your number one piece of advice that you've been given that you like to pass on to trainees? Fantastic question. Just backed up what I've said about him, ain't he, really? He always asks the great questions. Steve, I might have bored you with this anyway, but it's a great question to say out there. Best piece of advice I had, and it took me several years to understand it, and unless you get into wrestling, you stick at it and you hone your craft, you might not understand what I'm saying or might think that you understand it, but not get it, I don't know. Or maybe I'm just thick and you'll understand it straight away. I don't know. But I was told by Steve Logan, my first wrestling coach, wonderful, wonderful coach and clever man as well. I learned probably more about him from like the way he dealt with situations and the way, he could be hard or strict at times or laid back. I probably learned more about being a human being off him than I did a wrestler, even though I learned an incredible amount about wrestling off him. He said to me, and I had no clue about this, I was sitting on the bus on the way home, 3 buses, so you used to have to get to training. Sitting on the bus thinking, what does that now? Yeah, what's that? But he said to me, I'm going to try and get it right now as well, because I've had half a beer, so don't let me get it wrong. He said, Matt, if you think you're going too slow, in a wrestling match, if you think that you're moving too slowly, you're probably still going too fast. And I thought, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, one of the worst things that young wrestlers can do and young trainees can do is rush everything. You're more prone to hurt yourself because you rush in and you, boom, slip on a banana peel and hurt your elbow or whatever you hurt. And not only that, but the crowd need to take things in. If you wallop, they'll only cheer the last wallop. Boom, slow down, slow down, slow down. That's it. That's the best piece of advice. But worded like Steve gave it to me all them 20 odd years ago. If you think that you're going too slow, you're probably still going too fast. That's an honest bit of advice that helped me through big time when I finally understood it. Okay, because if you look at my early matches, I was way too quick and I thought I won't. But there you go, truth. We got a young lad called Ryan now. Carl Sparrow was sent the question in, but it's from Ryan, aged 8. Bless him. Not far off my son's age there, mate, my eldest son. What wrestler was your favourite growing up and your favourite now? Okay, I've probably got to do 3 really. I've got a middle period. First, it was Bret Hart, as I've spoke about in the previous Q&A. I watched him as a kid and he just was phenomenal. Absolutely adored Bret Hart as a kid. Then as I got older and hit my teens and adolescence and whatnot, I attached myself very much to Mick Foley. I just love the way, not so much like the barbed wire and the chairs and the tables, even though I did try to emulate that early on because I was so enamoured with him, but more like the way he'd tell a story, more that he was the everyman. He'd get beat up and keep going, get up, a bit of a Rocky phrase. It's not how hard you fall, it's how quick you get up and all that kind of stuff. And to me, he exemplified that. He was the everyman. He didn't look like a bodybuilder. He didn't have a million wrestling holds, but I adored him. And then when I become more of a wrestler and I started getting my gear on and, doing it right, I really like Ric Flair. Just his look, his promos, his gimmick, the style, the headlocks, the internationals, the leapfrogs, the very NWA style that he used. I found that I loved it. I fell in love with it. So it became Ric Flair. So to answer your question, it was Bret Hart as a kid. It was Mick Foley as an adolescent, both of whom I still love, I still look up to highly. But then as now, it's Ric Flair. I personally share the same view as Steve Austin, in that I think personally, by my opinion, wrestling's subjective. It's up to you what you think. Just like you've got a probably different favourite band to me, or a favourite book that's different to me, or your favourite movie. But my opinion is that Ric Flair is the greatest wrestler of all time. That's my opinion, and that's my true opinion. So Bret Hart and Mick Foley back then, Ric Flair now. Okay, you're probably hoping for someone a bit more cool than that. I don't know, but that's the truth. Ronnie Harris has asked me, who's the best technical wrestler I've ever wrestled? Depends what you mean by wrestled, because I've trained with, in the ring with, on multiple occasions and linked up with him and took an hold and all this. I've trained with Johnny Saint. I've never wrestled him, but I've trained, as in had a pull around and linked up and boom, boom, boom. I've trained with Johnny Saint, and I think he's probably pound for pound the best technical wrestler that I have, within touching distance of me that I've been around. You'd probably have to say that Tamora's up there with being a technical wrestler. You'd probably have to say that Red Eagle was. You'd probably have to say that Johnny Gargano was. Dick Togo was. They were all very technical. But if you're taking away the training element, so I can't say Johnny Saint, probably Johnny Kidd. I've wrestled Johnny Kidd a number of times early on in my career, and then with my comeback after my shoulder injury, I wrestled him in my comeback match. British round, 6 5-minute rounds, 2 falls to a finish, and he's a technical master. So, yeah, if I can't say Johnny Saint, because that was only training, he's only a hair width behind him anyway. So Johnny Kidd, yeah, most technical wrestler. Look him up, he's phenomenal. Right? Well, you know who he is anyway, mate. You know you're wrestling. Next question. Keith Wilson. This one's off. I didn't write the name, but I've remembered it from the question, so that's why I took so long. Keith Wilson's asked me, what's been your worst injury and how long were you out for? Okay, well, really, I've been lucky with injuries personally. I've known other people to get injured, and that still affects me now to this day. But that's not the place to talk about that, unfortunately. Or fortunately, it depends how you look at it, really. But personal injuries to me, I've had some bad ones. Some ones that you wouldn't think are bad. Like I bust my nose, you could probably see it ain't on straight. It comes out here and comes back in here. And what happened with that is I deviated my septum inside my nose, so that sits very uncomfortably. So although that sounds like a very simple injury, in cold weather, that can really hurt me. The way it's bent and sitting in other ways inside me, I could probably have it sorted with an operation. But it hurts in the cold weather, like really bad when I breathe in. So I have to kind of cover myself up with a scarf or something so the cold air doesn't eat straight up. So that was worse than it looked. I tore my groin once. That was really bad, literally from knee across there down, and everything down there was bruised, and that was a lot of pain. And I broke my rib as well. When I broke my rib, that was bad because I didn't like that injury, because every time I coughed or I sneezed or I laughed, I was in immense pain. And, I spent a lot of time around my dad at that point, and he's very, very funny. And I had to say, Dad, stop making me laugh, because, laughing hurts, and obviously then he told a few extra jokes. That was horrible. But I will say, of all those injuries, I never took any time off. I think with my torn groin, I took one show off, and I refereed that show. I used walking stick to get to the entranceway and then walked out and refereed. The only injury that's given me any long layoff was when I dislocated my shoulder. And I dislocated it that bad that it was, first of all, it was hanging sort of down there. It was right down there. But all the ligaments it wasn't just a straight dislocation. I'd had partial dislocations before, just back in and, easy. A couple of weeks back at it. But this one, it damaged all the ligaments and all the tendons. And some of the doctors said I'd never wrestle again. Then other doctors said I'd wrestle with an operation, which I wasn't willing to have. So I kept getting second opinions. And this one doctor says, well, I've known people rehab it. If you're to do this special rehab, you can be back in 12 months. And even 12 months just didn't sit right with me. I couldn't take 6 months off. I've been a wrestler since I was 15 years old. I'm 35 now. 20 years. I've been a wrestler longer than I haven't. And taking time off just didn't sit well with me. I couldn't do it. So rather than doing 3 rehabs a week for 12 months, I kind of ignored the doctor, but also took his advice. Kind of strange, really. And I did 3 rehab sessions a day. And in 3 months, I was back. So 3 months is the longest time I've had off. It's supposed to be 12, but I took 3 off. I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't do any more than that. Yeah, that's it really. My shoulder's probably the worst one because it kept me out, but my groin was painful, my rib was painful, and a few other ones. I think I cracked my coccyx once as well because some buffoon had wet their hair on like a shiny floor, and I was walking out to the ring. I went poof, boom, cracked my coccyx, full of adrenaline, wrestled the whole match, got back, and then couldn't walk. That was a bad one. But I've been very lucky. I've still got my health, I think. Maybe I've lost a few brain cells, but I've still got my health, so I won't complain about any of them, Keith. None of them. Next question. Okay. Steve Butler with 2. Okay. First one. Any kind of match that you would like to have that you haven't yet? I presume you're talking about stipulations. Boring answer, really. No, not really. I've done cage matches. I've done chain matches and all stuff like that. But nowadays, my tastes in wrestling have changed. I like to link up with a good professional wrestler who can take an hold and get out of an hold and counter an hold. And I like good, honest wrestling matches now. So, like, if someone says, do a ladder match, it'll draw a big crowd, or do a cage match, of course I'll do it. It's my job, of course I will. But I love nothing more than locking up, taking an head or taking an arm and just seeing where it'll go. I don't sit here thirsting for a specific kind of match or anything like that, really. I just like linking up and taking hold and working and seeing the crowd enjoy it and take the crowd up and down with the flow of the match, and then boom, hitting with something good, So it's a boring answer, but I just love wrestling, and that's fine for me.